Lisa Moore's heels clicked against the marble floor of Kang Estate, each step echoing through the hallway like a drumbeat announcing rebellion. The red dress clung to her curves, fabric she'd saved 2 weeks of wages to buy. 6 months she'd worked here as a maid, invisible and silent. 6 months of blending into walls, pouring tea without being seen, existing in the negative space between powerful men and their violence. Tonight, she was going to exist. She made it exactly 10 steps before the crash came. Glass exploding. Something heavy hitting wood. Then footsteps, fast and lethal, coming from the direction of Kang Dae-jin's office. Lisa's heart slammed against her ribs. She'd only spoken to him 3 times since starting work here. Once during her interview. Once when delivering coffee. Once when he looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes and said in Korean, "You're quiet." Good. Stay that way. The door behind her flew open with enough force to crack the frame. Where the hell do you think you're going dressed like that? His voice was low, dangerous, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. Lisa turned slowly, forcing her legs not to shake. Kang Dae-jin stood in the doorway, blood dripping from his right hand onto the pristine floor. His white shirt was soaked with whiskey. His eyes, black as obsidian, locked onto her like a predator spotting prey. "I'm going out," Lisa said, shocked her voice came out steady. No, he took a step forward. "You're not. It's my night off." "I don't care." His men materialized behind him, silent and tense. Ji-suk, his second in command, stood frozen, eyes darting between them like he was watching a bomb with no timer. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The mansion itself seemed to hold its breath. Dae-jin's jaw clenched. "Take off the dress." "Excuse me." "You heard me." Lisa squared her shoulders, feeling the fabric shift against her skin. "I bought this with my own money. I'm allowed to wear what I want on my own time." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or rage so controlled it looked like ice. He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides, and suddenly he was close enough that she could smell whiskey and blood and something darker underneath, something that made her pulse jump. "You work for me," he said, voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt louder than shouting. "That means you belong to me. I don't belong to anyone." The air between them crackled. For 5 full seconds, they stared at each other, neither backing down. Then Dae-jin stepped back, turned sharply to Ji-suk, and spoke in rapid Korean. "Find out where she's going. Who she's meeting. I want names, locations, everything. Cancel the meeting with the Incheon group." Ji-suk's eyes widened. "Sir, that meeting has been scheduled for 3 months. Did I stutter?" "No, sir." Dae-jin walked back into his office. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the paintings on the wall. Lisa left before her hands could start shaking, before anyone could see that her knees were weak, before the terror and adrenaline could catch up to what her mouth had just done. The thing about working in a place like Kang Estate was learning the art of disappearing. Lisa had perfected it. She poured tea like a ghost. Cleaned rooms like wind, present but unseen. She'd come to Seoul 6 months ago with nothing but a work visa and a desperate need to escape her old life in Lagos. The job paid triple what she could make anywhere else. The rules were simple. Don't ask questions. Don't cause trouble. Don't exist outside the uniform. But that red dress, hanging in a boutique window in Itaewon, had called to something in her she'd thought was dead. The part that remembered what it felt like to be seen. To be wanted. To be human. She hadn't expected him to notice. Kang Dae-jin ran half of Seoul's underworld from behind the legitimate facade of Dae-jin Group. Politicians feared him. Rival syndicates avoided him. He controlled everything he touched with surgical precision and ruthless efficiency. He didn't notice maids. Except now he did. 2 days after the red dress incident, Lisa found a box on her bed. Inside was a designer gown, black silk with a price tag that made her stomach drop. No note. No explanation. Just expensive fabric and an implicit command. She shoved it in her closet and pretended it didn't exist. The next day, shoes appeared. Italian leather, her exact size. The day after that, jewelry. Diamonds that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. Lisa touched none of it. On the 4th day, Dae-jin cornered her in the kitchen. It was past midnight. She was making tea because sleep had become impossible, her mind replaying that hallway confrontation on an endless loop. He appeared in the doorway like a shadow that had learned to walk, silent and absolute. "You didn't wear the dress I sent," he said in English this time, accent slight but present. "I didn't ask for it. I'm giving you things. Most women would be grateful. I'm not most women." He moved closer, and Lisa gripped the counter behind her, knuckles going white. His presence filled the kitchen, suffocating and electric. Up close, she could see the faint scar along his jawline, the exhaustion bruising the skin under his eyes. "Why did you buy that red dress?" he asked. "Because I wanted to feel normal for one night." Normal. He said the word like it was a foreign language he'd never learned. "You think you can be normal while working in my house?" "I think I can be whatever I want on my own time." His hand came up and Lisa's breath caught. But he stopped inches from her face, fingers hovering near her cheek like he was afraid touching her might burn them both. "You're mine, Lisa Moore," he said softly. "The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for both of us. I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's property." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "We'll see." He left. The tea went cold. Lisa didn't sleep that night, or the next, or the one after that. The surveillance started immediately. His men were everywhere. When Lisa went to the market, 2 guards followed at a distance. When she took her break in the garden, she spotted at least 3 watching from different positions. Daejin himself started appearing in places he'd never been before. The kitchen at odd hours. The hallway near the staff quarters. The library where she sometimes read on her breaks. Jisuk pulled her aside one afternoon, his usually stoic face tight with concern. "Whatever you did, undo it." "I didn't do anything." "You wore a red dress. Now the boss is canceling critical meetings, reassigning half the security detail, and watching surveillance footage like it's his new hobby. That's not nothing. That's a crisis. That's not my problem. It will be. Trust me." He was right. The next time Lisa tried to go out, Daejin physically blocked the front door. He stood there in a 3-piece suit, looking like he'd just come from a business meeting, but his eyes were wild. "Where are you going?" "To a friend's birthday party. In Mapo. I already cleared it with housekeeping staff." "I don't care what you cleared. You're staying here. You can't keep me prisoner." "Watch me." They stood there, locked in a silent war, neither backing down. Lisa's pulse hammered in her ears. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he stepped aside. But his next words made her blood run cold. "Jisuk. For guards. Stay within 10 feet of her at all times." "You're insane." "Probably." The party was at a rooftop lounge in Mapo, small and intimate. Lisa's friend Hannah from her Korean language class had invited her weeks ago. It felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater, being around normal people who didn't carry guns or speak in coded threats. She laughed. She danced. She drank wine and remembered what it felt like to be 26 and alive. And then a man touched her arm. His name was Daniel, a foreign English teacher from Canada. He was friendly, harmless, slightly drunk. He was asking about her accent, telling her about his hometown. His hand rested lightly on her elbow while he spoke. 30 seconds later, Kang Daejin walked through the door. The entire rooftop went silent. Everyone recognized him. Everyone knew his face from news reports about Daejin Group's latest pharmaceutical breakthrough, even if they didn't know what he really did in the shadows. Hannah's face drained of color. Daniel dropped his hand like he'd been electrocuted. Daejin crossed the space in long, measured strides. He grabbed Lisa's wrist, his grip firm but not painful, and said one word. "Now. You can't just. Now, Lisa." He pulled her toward the exit. She didn't fight because she could see the barely controlled rage simmering under his skin, could feel the violence humming through his body like a live wire. The guards fell in behind them. They made it to the black car in silence. He shoved her inside, climbed in after her, and slammed the door. The driver didn't wait for instructions. They just drove, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows. "Are you completely insane?" Lisa shouted, finding her voice now that they were alone. "You just humiliated me in front of my friends." That man touched you. He was being friendly. I don't care what he was being. Daejin's composure cracked. Do you have any idea what it does to me, watching you walk away? Watching other men look at you? Touch you. That's not my fault. I know. He slammed his fist against the seat. I know it's not your fault, but I can't stop it. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop watching you. I can't stop wanting. He cut himself off, breathing hard. The car filled with silence except for their ragged breathing. The driver kept his eyes carefully forward, pretending to be deaf. Wanting what? Lisa whispered. He turned to her, and for the first time she saw past the control, past the power, to the raw desperation underneath. You. I want you. And it's destroying me. Something fundamental shifted in that moment. Something that couldn't be taken back. I'm not a possession, Lisa said quietly. I know. I'm not a prize you can win or a problem you can solve with money. I know. So, what am I to you? Really? He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. Everything. You're everything I didn't know I needed and everything I can't live without. Lisa should have pulled away. Should have demanded he take her back to the estate so she could pack and leave. Should have run before this went any further. Instead, she leaned into his touch. This is dangerous, she whispered. I know. People will talk. Your enemies will notice. Let them. You could lose everything. I already have. I lost my mind the moment you walked down that hallway in red. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like Lisa expected. Not controlling or possessive, but desperate and almost reverent, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. And when she kissed him back, threading her fingers through his hair and pulling him closer, she felt the entire world shift beneath her feet. 2 days later, Lisa's belongings were moved to the family wing. She came back from a grocery run with the guards to find her small staff room empty, everything transferred to a suite 3 times the size with windows overlooking the private garden. Jisuk was waiting in the hallway, looking exhausted. Boss's orders. You're no longer classified as staff. You're under his personal protection now. What does that mean? It means you're his. Officially. Everyone in Seoul's underworld will know by morning. And if I don't want that? Jisuk looked at her with something almost like pity. Too late. He claimed you publicly when he walked into that party. There's no going back now. The mansion erupted in whispers. The other staff wouldn't meet her eyes. The guards watched her differently, with respect and caution. And Daejin's enemies started circling like sharks smelling blood in the water. The first warning came in the form of a dead crow left on the front steps, its neck broken, a red ribbon tied around its feet. The second warning was graffiti on the outer wall, painted in the night. The king bleeds when his queen is touched. Daejin's response was swift and brutal. 3 rival operatives disappeared in one night. A warehouse owned by the Black Lotus Circle burned to the ground. He became colder, harder, more ruthless in his business dealings. But with Lisa, he transformed into someone else entirely. Gentle. Almost vulnerable. Like he was 2 different people wearing the same face. I need you to trust me, Lisa told him one night as they sat in his office, her curled in a chair while he worked through paperwork. Not control me. Trust me. Trust gets people killed in my world. Then maybe you need to change your world. He looked up from the documents, studying her face like he was seeing her for the first time. You really believe that's possible? I believe you could do anything you set your mind to, including becoming someone better. He didn't argue. But he didn't agree either. He just went back to work, and Lisa pretended not to notice the way his hand shook slightly as he signed his name. The assassin came on a Tuesday afternoon. Lisa was in the garden reading, enjoying the autumn sunshine, when she heard it. A whisper of movement that was wrong, out of place in the carefully maintained space. She looked up just as a man emerged from behind the hedge, gun rising, silencer already attached. She didn't think. She ran. The first bullet hit the bench where she'd been sitting. The second shattered a flower pot. Lisa screamed, diving behind a stone fountain. Then there were more shots, louder, closer, the sharp crack of gunfire without silencers. When she looked up, Dae-jin was standing over the assassin's body, his own gun still raised, finger on the trigger. Blood pooled on the grass. His hands were shaking. He dropped the gun like it burned him, fell to his knees beside Lisa, and his hands were everywhere, on her face, in her hair, checking for wounds with frantic desperation. Lisa. Lisa, look at me. Are you hurt? Tell me you're okay. Please, God, tell me you're okay. I'm okay. I'm not hurt. He pulled her against his chest so hard she could barely breathe, his entire body trembling. I almost lost you. His voice broke. I can't lose you. I can't. I'm here. I'm right here. He held her like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart, like if he let go she'd disappear. And maybe he was right. That night, they crossed every remaining line. There was no discussion, no planning. Just desperate need and the certainty that they'd nearly lost something irreplaceable. Dae-jin kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, touched her like she was precious and breakable and his. And when Lisa pulled him closer, whispering his name against his skin, she felt every wall between them crumble to dust. In the morning, she woke up alone. The bed was cold. His clothes were gone. There was no note, no explanation, just the ghost of his presence and the crushing weight of abandonment. Lisa waited an hour, then 2. By noon, when Ji-suk refused to meet her eyes and couldn't tell her where Dae-jin had gone, she knew. She packed her bag and left before sunset, slipping out a side entrance the guards didn't watch as carefully. She made it to a budget hotel in Gangnam before her phone rang. Ji-suk's name flashed on the screen. Where are you? That's none of your business anymore. He's losing his mind. Every man in Seoul is looking for you. Every contact, every informant, every. Tell him I'm done. He won't accept that. He doesn't have a choice. She hung up. 3 hours later, Kang Dae-jin kicked down her hotel room door. The lock splintered. The frame cracked. He stood there in yesterday's clothes, hair disheveled, eyes wild, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He probably hadn't. You left, he said, and his voice was raw. You left first. I was protecting you. By disappearing? By making me think I was just another, her voice cracked. Just another thing you used and discarded? He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed her shoulders, and the words poured out of him like a dam breaking. You think that's what you are to me? Something disposable? I left because I had to eliminate the threat. The Black Lotus Circle issued a formal kill order on you. I spent the last 16 hours burning their operations to the ground, killing everyone who voted for your death, making sure they could never touch you again. I wasn't abandoning you. I was trying to keep you alive. Lisa stared at him, seeing the exhaustion, the fear, the blood under his fingernails that he hadn't had time to wash off. You could have told me. I didn't want you to be afraid. I was more afraid waking up alone, thinking you'd just taken what you wanted and left. Something broke in his expression. He pulled her against him, and she felt him exhale like he'd been holding his breath for hours. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to love someone without trying to control everything around them. But I'm trying. For you, I'm trying to be better. Then trust me enough to let me choose. I do. I will. Promise me. I promise. They returned to the estate together, and this time everyone knew what she was to him. Not a secret. Not a weakness. A choice he was making publicly, consequences be damned. But the Black Lotus Circle didn't forgive easily, and they didn't forget. They took Lisa in broad daylight 2 weeks later. 3 black vans, 12 operatives, a coordinated assault that bypassed every security measure Dae-jin had put in place. She fought. She screamed. She even managed to break one man's nose. But they were professionals, and she was one woman against trained killers. She woke up in a warehouse that smelled like rust and salt water, hands zip-tied behind her back, head throbbing. A man in an expensive suit stood over her, smiling like this was all very amusing. Ms. Moore. The woman who brought the great Kang Dae-jin to his knees. I wonder what he'll pay to get you back. He won't negotiate with you, Lisa said, tasting blood. Oh, I know. That's what makes this entertaining. He'll come for you himself. And when he does, we'll be ready. But they weren't ready. Not for what Dae-jin became when someone took what was his. Within 6 hours, the Black Lotus Circle's operations across Seoul were burning. Within 12, their leadership was dead or fleeing the country. Within 18 hours, Kang Dae-jin walked through the warehouse door like death incarnate, and what followed wasn't elegant or controlled. It was brutal and efficient and terrifying. He killed everyone between her and the exit. When he reached Lisa, he broke the zip ties with his bare hands, ripping plastic like it was paper. "I've got you. I've got you now." He carried her out. She didn't remember most of the journey back, consciousness fading in and out. But she remembered his voice, steady and sure, telling her she was safe. She remembered feeling protected, even covered in someone else's blood. At the estate, Dae-jin cleaned her wounds himself, hands gentle despite the violence still humming under his skin. He didn't speak. Neither did she. Words felt inadequate for what had just happened. Finally, as he bandaged the last cut on her wrist, he said, "I love you. I don't know when it happened. Maybe the moment you wore that red dress. Maybe the first time you looked at me without fear. But I love you, Lisa Moore. And I'm done pretending I can live without you. I love you too. I'm going to change. For you, I'll change everything. I'm already dismantling the illegal operations. Dae-jin Group will be completely legitimate within a year. No more blood money. No more war. Just you and me building something clean. You'd really do that? I'd do anything for you. I'd burn the whole world down if it meant keeping you safe." He kissed her then, and it tasted like promises and hope and a future Lisa hadn't dared to imagine. But there was one last threat, and it came from inside the house. Park Sun-tae, Dae-jin's uncle and former advisor, attempted a coup 2 weeks later. He wanted the empire back. He wanted the old ways restored. He gathered loyalists who thought Dae-jin had gone soft, that love had made him weak. The attack came at midnight. Gunfire. Shouting. Chaos erupting through the mansion like a storm. Dae-jin shoved Lisa toward a hidden panic room built into the wall. "Stay here. Don't come out until I come for you myself. Be careful. Always." He kissed her hard and fast, then disappeared into the violence. Lisa waited in the dark, listening to the sounds of war overhead, praying to gods she didn't believe in that he'd survive this. Minutes crawled by like hours. Then, finally, silence. The door opened. Dae-jin stood there, bruised and bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but alive. Very much alive. "It's over. Sun-tae is exiled. I chose mercy this time. Because of me? Because of us. Because I'm not that man anymore." 3 months later, they stood in the private garden behind the estate where Lisa had nearly died. It was a small ceremony. Just them, Jisuk as witness, and a handful of trusted people who'd survived the transition from empire to legitimacy. Lisa wore white instead of red, simple and elegant. The ring Dae-jin slid onto her finger had a black diamond surrounded by tiny rubies. "The black is my past," he whispered. "The red is the moment everything changed. The moment I wore that dress? The moment you chose yourself first. And then chose me anyway." Lisa kissed him, and the garden erupted in applause. 5 years later, Lisa walked through the hallway of Kang Estate wearing red again. This time, there were toys scattered on the marble floor. Children's laughter echoed from upstairs where their 3-year-old daughter was supposed to be napping, but definitely wasn't. Dae-jin Group was now a fully legitimate pharmaceutical company doing groundbreaking research. Dae-jin wore suits instead of blood, made deals instead of threats. She heard his footsteps behind her, familiar and loved. "Where do you think you're going dressed like that?" Lisa turned around, smiling. He was smiling too, and there was no violence in his eyes anymore. Just love and mischief and the comfortable intimacy of people who'd chosen each other every single day for 5 years. "Wherever I want," she said, the same words she'd said once in fear now spoken with joy. "Good answer." He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "But maybe I'll come with you this time. Always." They walked out together, hand in hand, into a life they'd built from ashes and red dresses and impossible choices. A life where control became trust, where power became partnership, where a monster became a man and a maid became a queen. All because one night a woman decided to exist. If you made it this far, you're part of this journey. Drop a comment and tell us what you would have done in Lisa's position. Would you have worn that red dress knowing the risk? Would you have stayed or run? And if you want more stories about love, redemption, and people who become better for each other, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video if you felt every moment of this transformation. Because stories like this only matter when they're shared. Thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing this love story. Now go be brave enough to exist, just like Lisa did.